Take care of yourself. You can't take care of anybody else until you take care of yourself. Faith without works, again, is dead.
Mhm.
So if you don't work on these things in self care, you're going to run into a lot of dead ends.
Yeah.
People, we get into what caused them to fall
Right.
and or slip into an area where they only can go up.
Right.
And a lot of times it's because when I listen to their stories, because I like to listen before I really read referrals or whatever that we get from DCS. I'd be trying, unless it's a domestic violence, I'd like to know those up front. But any other issue, if they're especially if they're dealing with drug abuse and they've lost their kids, but what led you to that?
Mhm.
Um, and I give them this because I want to know in when they do evaluations, they touch on some of this, but they don't go in detail in it. So I like to know what were they, where were they physically, emotionally, spiritually, professionally, their social skills, their financial skills, their psychological skills. Were you keying in on all of that before you did that? And
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, they're not. They probably only cover. I added education and religion to those areas, but a lot of times they only touching on what is it, 7? Those 7 areas they're only touching on 2.
Mhm.
So they always majority of people touch on the physical. Well, physically, yeah, physically you were doing drugs, so you were out there on the streets doing whatever. Um, and socially, those are my social friends. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
what
Those
else?
are the
They
people that
the
I hang with.
emotional side, they forgot that because that's what caused them to be there. Because either they were um, being abused emotionally, or they was being neglected. They could not um, cope or use good coping strategies to get them out of that situation.
Mhm.
So therefore, they allowed the other areas to overpower one area. And actually, I can understand where you're stronger in one area, was it physical, emotional, spiritual, professional, than you are in the other areas. But know that you should be tapping into all of those areas on a weekly basis, at least a weekly basis. If you can't do it on a daily, you should be tapping in on a weekly. Financial. What are you doing on your weekly? I know I go to work, and if I'm making so much money, am I paying bills? How am I paying those bills? Am I saving money from my check, or and things like that? So everybody should be able to tap into that. And even if you do not have a job, because if you do not have a job in that financial, then you need to be trying to figure out how you can effectively make money legally,
Legally.
legally, um, and then be able to put money away for a rainy day, to be able to survive, and to just surviving is hard enough, but just to be able to survive and say, hey, I don't have a lot. And people used to ask me, how do you save $10,000 on the minimum wage? And I did this years ago, and I saved it within a year. And I was like, well, I took care of my bills. I gave my tithe like I was supposed to, and my offering. And then and then those things that was not necessary in my life, I cut it out. So it was a time that, yeah, I wanted cable. I wanted my children to have a cell phone. Yeah, I wanted a cell phone
Right.
or whatever, but those wasn't essential to me
Mhm.
or whatever, because what was essential is that I did have a house phone. So I kept it,
Mhm.
you know, instead of having all this outrageous paying for up to date cell phones and stuff like that. I did what I needed to do. I paid off my car. I had 2 cars at the time. I paid off the only one that I owed money on. I paid that off within a shorter time than what I was supposed to, because when I got extra money, I don't like owing nobody. I don't care if it's 50 cents. I will
Yeah.
definitely pay you back or whatever, like ASAP. I didn't even start having a credit card until I was in my late 30s. And like, who does that? Or not many people.
Well,
They
this,
normally already in
yeah,
debt.
yeah. So one of the things when I was thinking about this is a lot of times people feel like, well, self-care means, I need some retail therapy and I'm going to go out and shop and spend
Oh my
money. How do you deal with that when you're talking with
gosh.
people?
Well,
about, because we're talking about these finances, because you guys have to
Yes.
understand that self-care is not just make yourself look good and feel good. Like if you have to put this stuff on credit cards, you shouldn't be doing. You can do a facial mask at home. The Dollar Tree had facial masks. You can get one of
They do. They have
those.
some good ones.
Yes, you don't have to spend a whole bunch of money if you don't have the money. But
That is so true. Um, I I can say that I'm guilty of it, but I know when to stop, or I even had to, spank myself and say, "Hey, Angie, did you really need that?" I can say that my family, and I can credit my mama for that. Hi, Miss Gray, or whatever, for just being wanting to look good and just having that where you can just go. It makes you feel good when you can go out and shop. And even if it was just buying, I don't have to buy expensive things to make me feel good. I don't. But when I went out and did it, how did I feel afterwards? The problem was still there, and I had to deal with that. And then here I am. Okay, I went out and I spent, I don't know, I spent $100 on clearance stuff or just whatever. I don't know. I went to the Dollar Tree and spent $50, and you're like, $50 at Dollar Tree? Yes. On things, household stuff that I didn't need, a little cute stuff, or buying stuff for people that don't need it or whatever, didn't ask for it, or just buying things. I started to feel guilty about it, and then I started looking at, okay, I want these things that I see other people have, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's this area in your life where you want to be at, but how are you going to get there? Well, how I was going to get there is stop running to the store. I knew the store better than the people who worked there. I knew where everything was. And I'm talking about from the Dollar Tree, Walmart. You asked me, I knew. Which was ridiculous to me. Big Lots, what else? What other stores we have? The mall, every place in the mall I knew.
Target, Walmart.
They have socks right there by the they have this little cute jewelry set, something like this or whatever, right there by the counter. Go on the right side, look at the bottom to, and it's a blue little thing right there by it. I shouldn't even know that. Like that's too much.
Because in Target they got that section right in the front, like everything is like $1, and so you go in and you buy all this stuff that you really don't need. And then if you go to the Dollar Tree, you can't get your money back. You gotta like exchange stuff. And so
that just keeps the cycle going.
Yeah.
But back to where how that affected me and how we should be able to change that is just look at your needs and look where you want to go. You have to set goals for yourself. And I used to think it was really childish. I remember Song did it long time ago. I mean, this was years ago, and she was like, "Oh, we're gonna do a vision board." And I was like, "Girl, I know my vision." Or whatever. And I was like, I know where I want to go. I know where I want to be. But just by being there, and I remember used to write affirmations. Remember used to take the little yellow sticky. She had stickers everywhere. And make affirmations. And I remember one time she had this fake, was it $1 million or whatever? You said,
yeah.
One day I'm gonna get here. You're gonna get there.
Yes.
Or whatever. You're gonna get there. I declare you're gonna get there. I never understood that. Like, why do I need to make a board? I don't need to make a board. Everybody don't need to do that. But it kind of like gives you a visual of what you want. And you can do it every year. You can do it every so many months. Once you do a goal, it makes you feel good about yourself. Do that.
And then it helps you it keeps it in front of your face, because like if you don't, it's easy. It's just like when you watch TV and then you watch so much of it, or you see these commercials. Commercials were created so that you can see it, and now it's in your mind, and then you go out and you want to get that thing. It's the same thing with a vision board, or even if you're just writing affirmations. I've heard it said multiple times, like a word and an image create the same kind of electric waves in your head. And so don't quote me exactly on that. I forgot exactly what it's called, but I'm not a doctor. But it creates the same kind of thing in your head. So if you say a word like elephant, you see an image of an elephant in your head. That's the way that your brain works. So if you write your visions down, then that's what you're going to see in your head. And the more you see it, then it's going to start to manifest in your life. So if you're speaking negative things, or somebody's speaking negative things to you, and then you start to see that in your head, then that's why it keeps manifesting in your life. And then if you do the positive, or you reverse and do the positive of that, then you'll start seeing that in your life, and then that'll manifest.
True. I like that. It will. I mean, they speak those things as though they were.
Yep.
Yeah, you really have to do that. And that's why it's important to do self-care, because I don't care what situation I've been in, Shawnee. When I really start teaching this, and I really had to go back and I had to look, because though they talked about self-care, we had to do this thing in self-care when I was going through my degree plan, and I didn't have a regular degree plan. Liberty University is a great university. Shout out to Liberty. Hey. But they really make you read. They really make you do your research. And a lot of it was learning on my own. But when I needed help, I will go and ask my professors for that. But they made to do the self-care thing, and they didn't go even as deep as this. They had some pillars and some, I'm going to say some steps or whatever, where they say, okay, you need to do this. This is self-care. That is self-care. And they were talking about self-care and burnout. And I began to, when I picked this up from my job, it was something that my supervisor just pulled off the internet. And the areas, like I said, again, that they talk about was the physical, the emotional, and when the professional and the social. And I was like, how did that, really tie into the lives of these people? How does it really tie into my abandonment issues or abandonment issues that people feel? Because my abandonment issues are not like, oh, my daddy just got up and left. Right. So I did from the physical to the emotional to the physical. It was like a sandwich or whatever. And that's what it was. And what was left in the middle is my emotional needs that were not being met or that was abandoned. And yes, my mom is a wonderful person. She, but she only can go off of what she knew, and to, help us out and to encourage us. We got good grades and things like that. But at the same token, there's some things that a female need from her mom and her dad. The same vice versa for a young man. A young man need their mother for the nurturing. They need their father for, more structure, manly structure.
Right.
And discipline and things like that. So yes, I needed those things and they weren't there. So with that, I began to feel like what I end up doing is reflecting on my physical. Okay, fine. I ate healthy or whatever. I know I was, pretty much in good shape. Didn't have no medical problems at the age that I am, which I will not tell you.
But she looked good for her age.
I still do not take any medications on that. But, so I was like, okay, my physical is taken care of. My emotional, everybody emotional has been a challenge for them, throughout. And it's going to be like that until you close your eyes and leave this earth. The spiritual side, I'll come back to my emotional side. The spiritual side, I beat myself up about my spiritual walk. And I think we all have those who have grew up in a church. I grew up in a church all my life. I did step away, and I stepped away with grace, though. I stepped away. I was like, look, God, I want to go party. I want to find out what the world is about. I did. I really did. I talked to God, like, seriously. I was like, look, God, I really want to go and party. I want to see what this world is about. What's the hoopla or whatever. So I did my little thing for like 2 years until I got tired of it because I overdid it. And then I wanted to come crying and crawling back to God, and it was no problem because he just accepted me. But I still was beating myself up about the prayer, if I'm not praying on a daily. And sometimes we may not even be able to do that, even though the Bible says you should pray daily, but I don't think it's really physically talking about the daily thing. They just saying it's almost like a continual thing.
Right.
And I think a man should always pray.
Some people get confused to the fact that, like, they put time limits on it. Like,
exactly.
I have to pray for like 3 hours a day. And then I don't know why they always exaggerate it. Like, God never, unless God told you got to pray 3 hours a day.
The Bible didn't say that.
Right. They will be like, well, I can't do 3 hours, so I just won't do nothing. But then I feel bad and stuff. And you have to understand that your relationship with God is a relationship. So that spiritual relationship that you have is a relationship. The time that you spend with him, you're not just going to be like, I'm just blocking off this set time. Well, I mean, you can have like a block of time, but like you should just spend time with him throughout the day, just like talking to him. Like while I'm doing stuff, I just be talking. I'll be like,
I'll be in the shower and I'll be busting out what songs, and I'll be like, ooh, where did that come from, God?
Right.
Well, I thank you because evidently I need it for today. I'm going to need it for today. Yeah. And it'd be weird or whatever that I bust out with that. But back to what I'm saying, as far as taking care of your spiritual side, your spiritual and your religion is totally different.
Mhm.
Because your spiritual side, but taking care of your spiritual aspects or whatever, is keying in, almost is connected to, all these areas are connected to your emotional side,
Mhm.
So yeah, my spiritual side is that I may like to sing, I may like to be in tune with Mother Nature to a certain extent, because I don't like creatures.
I know I
But
don't do it.
but it was just, as far as like, am I reading my literature? Am I reflecting on it? Am I reading not just the Bible, but reading other literature to enhance my spirituality, to
Mhm.
enhance my connection with Him?
Mhm.
And my religion is what I practice. So
Mhm.
I practice abstinence, I practice holiness, I practice, those are the things that I practice that go on in my daily life.
Right.
So it goes hand in hand, but it's just to let you guys know it is something different. If you don't believe me, look into it and see what I mean. But as I look at that through my self-care needs, I start evaluating it, and I can tell people, don't evaluate things to the point where, like Song said, don't put it in a category or a time frame, or I have to pray every day at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, by God, I'm not a morning person, so, and God know that, or whatever. He really knows that, or whatever. And I will get irritated. I will snap, and I don't care who you are. Don't wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I will turn down $100,000 job. I really probably would. I had to think about it, but I wouldn't be, if I take something like that and had to be working 5 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't be very good at it. I would not be a nice person, or whatever. So anyway,
Don't talk to me in the morning.
yeah. So that would not work for me. But
I think because we even talked
professional.
about it wasn't necessarily about the spiritual aspect, but like even putting those restraints on when it goes to your physical and your health and your things like that. Like we put these constraints and we say, well, okay, I'm gonna do this type of diet because this is the new thing that people are doing. I'm going to stick to it. And then we fail at it, and then, or we miss a day or something happens, and then we just like feel like we like failed at everything. And it's not really that. You have to find what works for you, and don't put yourself in this tight box that you can't breathe, because then that's not self-care. That's, I don't know what it is. It's like prison or something.
It's just like limiting yourself to areas. And I used to do that. I can talk about my spiritual walk, and the things that I did. I said at the beginning of the year or any time of the year, I'm gonna read my Bible. I'm gonna read the whole Bible through. By the time I get to, I don't know, like the fourth, fifth book, after I get to maybe eight books in the Old Testament, I'm like, I read this before. Why am I still reading this? I don't want to read this no more. However, I just will beat myself up about, oh, I didn't do that, and now going over to religion. Oh, my God is not pleased with me because I didn't get up this morning and read my word before I went to work. Well, guess what? What if I have like 5 days of waking up late? You know what I'm saying? Or not waking up in time, and at that time, making sure the kids are up, and
right.
Anything can happen. Losing your keys, or your fingernail break. I don't know. You got diarrhea or something like that. And I'm serious, because these things actually happen.
Right.
And then you begin, it becomes a norm. Sometimes you feel like it becomes a norm. Like I woke up one day and I was like, I felt funny because I was like, how have I been telling the Lord thank you, for waking me up or whatever? But because my body had been so tired or whatever, I wake up drowsy or whatever, and I'm just like, why am I so tired? And I was like, okay, Lord, thank you. And sometimes I think I said thank you, and maybe I didn't. Mm-hmm. So I just go back and do that. But as far as like, just like some say, don't put yourself in a block, but make sure that you try to check these boxes every week on a weekly basis. What am I doing for myself spiritually? What am I doing for myself professionally? And that says a lot. If you're not happy somewhere, who says you have to stay there forever? Yeah, they may have good benefits, but if you're going to be stagnating and you want to grow or whatever, step outside, step on faith and say, you know what, I'm looking for another job, or I'm looking for other avenues to stretch uh my banking account. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to have 6 bank. I want to have 7 if you ask me. But those areas, the social part. Do I have healthy relationships with my friends? If I don't, I'm an observer. I have very few little friends at this age. Normally, when you go from as you grow older, you find out who your friends really are, and that's true. Um, and are those friendships healthy, or is it a give and take? I'm gonna give my service to you. I'm gonna be there for you. In return, I expect all of my friends. Anybody that's in my life can tell you I don't verbally say it or whatever, but you'll know it when I just start like disappearing and not being around you. You'll know that you're probably not giving back, pouring back into my life. And I'm not talking about just the physical or whatever, because I don't need your physical stuff. I'm not a materialistic person, so you can't buy my love. You can't buy my friendship or whatever. It takes more than that. Do we have a good conversation? Can I pour into your life? Can you pour into my life and tell me, Angela, you're wrong for thinking, you're wrong if you said that to that person, and you need to go repent and ask them for forgiveness regardless of that. And if I was your true friend, if you was my true friend, vice versa, whatever I tell you, and I was like, you know what, that wasn't right. I may say it, trying to say it in love, but that wasn't right. And maybe you need to try to, take some time, and don't take too much time, but take some time to go figure that out or whatever, and then go to that person and hash it out. Because what we don't want, as we inspire people over our life, time, we do not want to hinder someone's ability to grow. And I'm talking about in all areas, from the physical. We don't want them to emotional growth, spiritual growth, professional growth. We don't want them to be stifled in those areas if we can give that to them. So my social, just having that social aspect of self-care is very important. And as my mom used to say, or the old saying, birds of a feather flock together. If you lie with dogs, you're gonna get fleas.
Wake up with fleas.
And it's true. And it doesn't necessarily say you're gonna lie with a dog and fleas are gonna start hopping on you, even though that can happen. What they're definitely we're talking about is that 9 times out of 10, whatever you connect your life with on a daily basis, a lot of the times that stuff rubs off on you. And I say that because where I grew up from, in the Los Angeles County area, is, and we know we have gangs out there or whatever, but if you're hanging on the corner with a bunch of gang members, you consider the gang member, right or wrong?
Right.
You're right. So all these people that's out there in the world talking about, oh, my baby was an innocent bystander hanging out with the gang members standing 10 feet away from them.
Right.
Like, let's get it together. So it's not just the gangs or whatever. It's just where you put yourself at. With people and socializing with people.
If you look at the 5 closest people around you, it will show you who you are. The 5 closest people around you, look at how much money they make. You make somewhere around them the same amount of money they make. You probably live like the same type of environment they live in. And even the self-talk. How do the people close to you talk? You probably talk the same way to yourself. So if you're associating with people who are, positive self-talkers, then you're more likely to be a positive self-talker. But if you're hanging with people, I remember one of my friends, and she has no problem correcting people. I love her. But when I first met her, I used to always say, oh my gosh, my feet are killing me. My feet are killing me. And then one day she was like, do you really want your feet to kill you? Because you're going to speak that into your life. And I was like, so is she crazy? But when I really started thinking about the things that I was saying, because my feet was killing me, my back was killing me, something was always killing me. And, I've had to start changing the way that I was talking, because no, I really don't want those things. And it just to a certain extent, that might sound crazy to people, like, well, that won't really happen. But you have no idea the power of your words. The Bible says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. And you're speaking these things. The Bible tells you, speak life. Don't speak death, speak life. Because no, my feet may not ultimately kill me, but it could. Like, people have gotten, issues with their feet. And
people have gotten their feet cut off and they had gangrene and it went up to the rest of their body, and their body became septic and they died.
And then they died, exactly. And I actually knew somebody that happened to, that I love very dearly. And so it can happen if you keep speaking these things over yourself. So you want to surround yourself, you want to associate with people who are at the place where you want to be.
Exactly. Or where you want to go.
Exactly. And so you don't want to continue to be, if you're looking at the people that you're around and that's not the results that you want in your life, as uncomfortable as it may be, you need to find a new group of people that are going to stretch you to be who you're called to be.
Exactly. I totally agree, because as we grow older, and just people in general, I definitely pour into a lot of young people. Whatever they say, you want to be rich and you want to be a millionaire. Okay, well, I'm not saying that you can't have that friend. I'm just saying that if you want to be rich, you got to maybe go try to find people who are rich and see how they got there. And it's not to pinch off of them or mooch off of them or whatever, but how did they get there? Right now, I'm getting ready. I just ordered 7 books, and I've been wanting to invest in some companies that I know that we use every day. Women, yeah. If you're at a certain age, you're going to be using those companies for personal hygiene care. And I want to invest in these companies. I said, why not? They get my money. So
right.
Why not? But I didn't know how to do it. But and I'm not around people who are investing in that type of way. And it doesn't take a lot. They would say, well, what do you want to start off at? The banker told me, what do you want to start off at? They was trying to get me to invest, in all, in certain things. And I was like, I don't want to gamble. I want to invest in it so my stuff can grow. And everything. And he was like, well, this is how you're going to make it. And I'm just like, well, until, even if he was a banker or whatever, I asked him, did he do it? And he was like, oh no, I don't do this. So, well, how are you gonna tell me to do my money like that? You know what I'm saying? I want to be somewhere. I want to be somewhere, or to a point where, yes, there may be some risks that you have to take. I don't call them risks. I call it stepping out on faith or whatever, because I'm gonna do it. I'm doing it in good faith and praying that, not that I'm gonna go out and put, I don't know, $10,000 on Lucky Blue or whatever, the horse,
right,
and stuff, and then hoping he get around the track before. No, I'm not doing that. Now, if you say, it'll be different if you say, okay, put $10,000 on this racetrack or whatever, because all the horses are going to be there. Somebody's going to win and they're going to make money. That's different or whatever, because I'm investing into a business, or I'm investing into something that I can see that can rise. And don't get me wrong, companies can fail. We see them all over America. That's failing all over the world. That's failing. But at the same token, had I invested in Facebook when Facebook came along, just like many people say, if I invested in Facebook, yeah. If I had invested in certain companies, I'd be like, dang, where would I be? So definitely that financial thing, like putting yourself in that area, learn about it. If you want it, you go out and you get it. I never forget this young lady, single parent, and that's why I give kudos to single parents who are out there teaching their kids the importance of these areas, self-care, definitely finance. The young man wanted some Jordans. Jordan making money or whatever off of, I'm just going to say it, off of majority Black African Americans or Hispanic, of those who are not as, how can I say, that's not financially really able to do that, and they go out and they buy these $150 shoes. Yeah, I like to look good too, but at the end of the day, I don't want to buy Jordan shoes. I want to buy into his company, if you know what I mean.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So what she did, she said, look, you want these Nikes, you want these Jordans and stuff, She said, I'm gonna, instead of giving you this $150 to go get some shoes, if you can take this $150 and turn it over and invest in the next 6 months, you can buy any shoe that you want to. Why this young man, he's only 14 years old and he ended up making like $14,000. A lot of people don't even make that within 6 months. He's 14. And I'm just like, are you serious? That's because he had a mind to go out and do that. And that's what he really wanted to do. And he surrounded himself. He didn't know a lot, but he went and read books. He got on YouTube and all this to find out where he wanted to be financially. So with that said, you know, you have to tap into those areas that you're lacking and see if you can relate those issues. I'm quite sure all of them is going to relate to something that's happening in your life. If something negative is happening in your life, look at those areas. So those areas are, I know the young lady that did your podcast with you last weeks ago, whatever, she talked about different areas of self-care.
The 7 pillars.
The 7 pillars of it. And I went in detail of those areas that affect you most, where you can see it, you know, and where you can make those changes at, so you can be more effective to reach those 7 pillars, which you know more than I do, those 7 pillars that she discussed and that she talked about.
Go back and watch that video.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and watch that video too, because I'm gonna tie it all into, you know,
yes,
to speaking about this self-care again. And anyway, it's definitely important to turn your negative, and I can tell anybody, and I really honestly, the only thing we can't turn, and I really honestly feel that you can turn any aspect of your life around. Any aspect. I don't care where you're at, whether you're homeless, whether you're you abuse, you just don't have anybody, and things like that. And I'm talking to those, and the reason why I say you don't have anybody, because a lot of people get depressed when their loved ones, their closest loved one passed away, their mother, their father, sister, brother, or whatever, and they may not have family members. But just because you don't have that blood, that don't mean you don't have family, because there's somebody out there for everybody, and that will make a family, that you can make a family with. But in those areas, you also can look at it and say, okay, I need some psychological help. You know what I'm saying? I can get there. So if I have a meltdown or a breakdown, you know,
the coping skills.
The coping skills that I need, you know, I need to look back in my psychological background and my skills and say, you know what, am I addressing those needs? Am I addressing my psychological needs? Am I, and not saying everybody need a counselor or going to, you know, get some psychotropic medications and stuff like that. Some people do, and I don't bang that. If you need it, go get it.
Yes. But I mean, it just like you're watching this video right now, there are a lot of resources out there, videos. Yeah, I'm drinking turmeric. I got to get gas started. But there are videos out there that can help you. There's things you can Google. There are books you can read that can teach you how to cope if you don't have good coping skills. So yes, you can get a therapist, or you could read these things. But ultimately, if you never learned these things before, you have to learn them somewhere. You can't just continue that same cycle of, well, I never learned this stuff. Nobody ever taught me, but I'm just going to keep on going this way and expect a different result. That's insanity. No more. Okay.
And that is insanity. Just like I said, turning those negatives into a positive, whatever it is in your life. I took my negative and turned it into a positivity to make me feel different about men. Not really. I mean, it just gave me a better insight on what I want, what I expected from them. And it did make me a stronger person, because where I was coming from in my childhood life, I've seen some things that most people would say, oh, she's going to allow that to happen to her. or she's going to end up in this situation. My dad went way on the other side and say, oh, she's going to be like this because of how he treated my mom and how he treated women in general, put it like that. And the emotions that he felt, towards women, the things that he said and I was like, oh, well, it made me, I just turned it around into a positive. I say, I don't have to be like that. I don't have to really look at that or hate men or whatever. I don't have to be like that. I'm going to take it. Thank you. And I thank him for that. I even wrote it on his obituary. These are the things that I thank my father for. And people was like, why would you say that? Why would I say? Because if he done nothing else for me in my life, some of the negative things that he said to me, this is what happened. This is the outcome of it, right, or whatever. So it made me a better person. You cannot tell me that I'm not beautiful. You cannot say anything to me about my physical appearance that will make me think less of myself.
Right.
And it doesn't matter. You can't even say nothing about my pocket, my finances, my professional, because personally, it's none of your business. And then I feel like I'm growing in that area, and it does take time. What my riches are, I feel like I'm blessed, and I may not be making $85,000 a year, but what I am making or whatever I'm taking and I'm using the best out of it. Right. What I am doing spiritually, I can say I do better, but you can't tell me though, you should be reading or you should be doing this. No, you don't know that.
Right. Stay in your lane. Mind your business. Worry about yourself.
Because exactly, self-care, worry about yourself. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's a nice quote in the back, and I'm going to tell you the young lady's name that said that. She says, self-care is not selfish. When I had to go back to school, I needed to go back to school. I had neglected myself for years, for at least the last 2 decades I did. And was very smart, had scholarships to go to medical school and everything. And I was just like, oh, I'm going to do this for somebody else, and lost out on all of that. But that's okay. It's all good. And it made me start saying, it's all about Angie. It's all about Angie. And my children were small. And I had to keep saying it because I know my heart. I know if they say, oh, if my family say they needed me across the United States, guess what? I got up and I went, knowing that I had a paper to write, or assignment to get in so I can make that A. Instead, I end up failing classes. And it just taught me, hey, Angie, you have to be selfish, self-care or whatever. And it says self-care, there's a quote here, self-care is not selfish. You cannot serve an empty vessel. That's by Miss Eleanor Brown. Don't know her, but that's a good quote because it is not selfish. And you can't serve anything if I can't help someone else if my vessel is empty. Right. I can't tell you anything, and I don't want nobody trying to tell me about anything that they don't know anything about. Right. Don't pour into me empty words, and there is no substance behind it to help me grow. So that's what I took out of that quote.
It's literally like, the Bible says, if you see someone hungry and you tell them, oh, be blessed, but you don't give them any food, that's what I see from that is you're giving people really nothing. You're trying to pour something into them, but you have nothing of value to them, no substance, and they're still hungry because you weren't full, so you couldn't fill them out of your overflow. And I've said this in other videos before, but we are supposed to be a blessing, but we're supposed to be a blessing out of our overflow, not out of our reservoir, because that's what we need to sustain our own lives. If we're giving out of what is in us to keep us full, to keep us mentally in the right place, then we are going to be, drained and burnt out. So we have to get to a place where we're taking care of ourselves so that we can be full enough to overflow and then help other people.
True. I like that. I'm going to use that. You can't let people know that, hey, when they are explaining to me, about how they got there, and I was like, because you was taking things out of your reservoir. You wasn't taking it out of your overflow. That's the reason why you can't became overwhelmed and start doing those things that were not of you or
Right.
was not for you, and things. That's how people get into debt. I used to, and reason why I didn't start using credit cards till I was like in my 30s is because I was conscious enough or aware enough. I was like, you know what, God, yes, I want this. I want a beautiful living room, and that was my first bill, and I hated. Really didn't want to do that because I had the money to buy the whole living room set. I had the money to buy my whole car, cash out. I think it was like $12,000, a '91 Honda Civic, and I think it was like 12,000 and something. I was like, oh, I got 22,000 saved up. I'm just gonna go buy the car. I don't want to owe them. But they was saying, oh, you build credit. Oh, what I was saying about that is that just having that, you know what I'm saying, made me feel good. But when I didn't have it, it was like, okay, God, did you bless? If God didn't bless me with it, put it like this: if He didn't bless me to have the money for it, to buy it cash out, I wouldn't get it. That's how I kept myself out of debt and not using credit cards and things. And I still was blessed. Faith without works, again, is dead. So if you don't work on these things in self-care, you're going to run into a lot of dead ends.
Yes. Well, that's good. Are there any last words you would share?
Yeah, my last words that I would say are: be true to yourself. Don't be stagnant or just get too complacent in what you may feel comfortable in. If you need something in your life, if you're lacking something, an area in your life, know that there is always a turnaround. When you get to the bottom, there's only one way to look, and that's up. But it's not necessarily saying you have to get to that bottom. Whatever, you do not have to go that low in order to realize that I need to make changes in my life in this area. I guarantee you, if you look at those areas of your life, physical, social, emotional, spiritual, religion, education, all of those areas, if you look at those areas in your life and you're lacking that area, I guarantee you, and it's, when I say it's lacking, if you start working in those areas, I guarantee you will feel better, you will look better, you will react better, and in the end, you'll just be a better person than what you were a month ago, a week ago, a year ago. And who doesn't like better? I love it.
Yeah. And you will stop settling for stuff that is not benefiting you. You will stop settling for people treating you any kind of way because you will start to treat yourself better. I think that goes back to something that your dad was saying about what you say about yourself. So that's really good.
Yeah, that's it. So you guys be blessed. Take care of yourself. You can't take care of anybody else until you take care of yourself. Effectively doing it the right way.
All right. I love you guys. I will talk to you on the next episode. Bye.